So, another girls' trip was not only hijacked by the Erika and Sutton drama, but some beach frolicking, a disabled foot, a breakdown turning into a breakthrough, and more inner thoughts unleashed by Erika over Tom's mental health. Now, before we jump into this episode recap and react, my name is Nick Zangle. Thank you so much for being here if you're returning or if you're brand new. We've made it to episode 18 officially of season 11 of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills recap and react on this Friday. This episode is titled Del Mar by the Shade in reference to their trip to Del Mar, California, and the shade being thrown at the first night's dinner. Now, let's jump right into this episode as you join and leave your live chats here live on YouTube. And if you're listening on the replay, of course, join in wherever you are able to comment. So we start this episode with the girls packing for a trip to San Diego, planned by girls trip rookie Kathy Hilton, although she makes it a point to share how she isn't a rookie at planning trips in general. After all, she is a Hilton. She just doesn't usually go on many girls' trips. But we also get Kyle relieved of where her and Kathy's relationship is after many years of issues, resulting in holidays spent apart. Now, as Kyle is packing with dog present, she is FaceTiming Crystal, where we see them recounting the Dorit by Nectaria bridal line party, where Kyle's recount of events seems to be Sutton and Erika not saying one word to each other the whole night, but I recall the scene slightly different, where they were actually cordial with each other and keeping words surface level to each other, and it seems editors are actually on Kyle's side on this one by cutting out the part that they showed last week where Sutton and Erika were greeting and standing next to each other at the table. I'll have more thoughts on that in a second, why I think that was. But Crystal and Kyle are then talking about dreading any of the drama bound to happen during the trip. But the other girls and the powers that be, we will soon see, may have a different plan for them. Now we are with Kathy, who is now packing while FaceTiming Dorit, getting caught up on what she missed at the party per usual, as Kathy was not fully paying attention to everything going on between catching up on things that happened between Garcelle and Dorit at the end of the night, which we saw at the end of the last episode. And we see Kathy letting Dorit do as Dorit does best, which is be long-winded as she is putting on her makeup and getting her makeup packed. And some would actually describe Dorit maybe more as detailed rather than long-winded. But anyways, Kathy is pulling a vague Kathy in her confessional by saying, if the trip goes south, then I'm going to be... Which is funny, and I'll touch on that right now, which is... So the editors, I think... in reference to, actually, I'll start with the vague Kathy comments that I just talked on, which is funny. It's that thing that they pointed out in the beginning of the season, where Kyle was pointing it out at the table, where she does this, and she said because she doesn't want people to overhear her, and you never know who is listening. And I think now that I've seen this play out a couple times, it is pretty genius because she can imply things without saying them, and then no one can ever say that she said something because she didn't say it. She just kind of implied a generic statement, and we all kind of filled in the blanks with it. So when I was filling in the blanks that she was saying, I was like, whoa, that actually works really well. Anyways, as far as the editors wanting us to have short-term memory regarding Sutton and Erika's interaction at the Reed's party last week, I think it is because I remember it differently, but I think maybe they are building up more suspense for the next few scenes and episodes where the tone may change from Erika in her response to Sutton. And so they're kind of hoping we forget about this, but I don't know why they would show the interaction between Erika and Sutton last week, but then this week pander to what Kyle was saying for them not interacting. I don't know what's up with that, but I will let you talk about that in the comments if you have any thoughts on that. But everyone is now arriving to Kyle's Caravan down to San Diego, Del Mar area, where we see Sutton has a sprained ankle and shares her secret struggle with foot pain over the years and is fighting back to get in her shoes, which she describes as her friends. Now, Lisa is sharing that Garcelle is meeting them down there after shooting the reel that day, which I'm guessing this is on a Friday. And Erika then shares she brought her dog with her, so she is leaving separate. As Crystal is sharing in her confessional, she is kind of envious of Erika for doing a smart thing by taking her dog with her and using it as an excuse to not have to mingle as much with the group, or at least not as much as she has to or is required to. Now, Kathy is looking for her purse, which she apparently forgot at her house, but says her helper at her house is actually the one that forgot it, who helped her pack. And Kyle is now left to play mom to Kathy, as we've seen multiple times this season, to get the purse, which has the phone in it, to tell them where the purse is, so she doesn't even have her phone. Before leaving, they pick up the phone at the 405 and Sunset and on curbside, basically, which I think is a whole comical scene. I'd love to be a fly on the wall seeing that all play out, how that really happened. But someone named the lady from Kathy's house brought it to her, and I thought that was an interesting scene. But my reaction to this is Garcelle shooting the reel as the reason she is arriving later to the trip, I think maybe contributing to her rift with the group, or at least lack of closeness that she keeps bringing up as feeling like an outsider. And the same thing happened in La Quinta, where she arrived, I think, a day late because she was finishing shooting the reel, and then it ended up staying in a hotel as well. So I don't think she can have it both ways. I'm not suggesting that she should quit a good gig for this group, but I think she needs to accept the reality of the trade-off of her being a working actress and talk show host and having all these great opportunities, which she said she's grateful for, but also this opportunity with these girls on this show. There might be some conflicts there that are preventing her from getting close to these friends, and we will revisit that later in this episode. But I'm going to get to your live chats in a second, but I want to get through a little more of this scene. But Erika now arrives first to the Fairmont Grand Del Mar, which is a very fancy hotel, because she had the dog and left before everyone else. They give the dog a tennis ball, which I thought was really nice, while waiting as Erika is confessing in her confessional, to every day waking up, it feels like a baseball bat to the head, metaphorically, of course, and saying how emotional this is and how no one out of the girls knows what it is like to go through what she's going through. So then Sutton arrives with her ankle getting worse. Kathy and Kyle then arrive, where we see Kathy drove by herself, which is rare, and they are sharing a room, the best room in the hotel, as again, she is a Hilton after all. And we see Kyle FaceTiming Sutton from their rooms, and Sutton shared that she went to the ER to get x-rays, and Kyle points out how maybe this will help, this distance between her and Erika will actually be a welcomed break. Stay till the end to hear my thoughts on a lot of these things happening where they're trying to not be with each other at this point in filming. But the girls are now without Garcelle, who hasn't arrived yet, and Sutton, who has a hurt foot. They go to the beach for a beach picnic, and they decide to watch the sea lions on the beach, getting a little frisky with each other, as they do in their natural habitat. But as they sit down, Sutton then calls to update on her foot as Erika rolls her eyes at the call, and Dorit asks how Erika is feeling about Sutton, where Erika shares being called a liar is something she will not tolerate. Kyle is then trying to clarify, and shockingly to me, stands up for Sutton in a certain way, that Sutton did not say Erika is a liar, just that some things she said are coming across as lies because they're not adding up. Now, Dorit, upon seeking clarification from Erika, is greeted with an additional allegedly, in quotation marks, by Erika that wasn't there before when she was telling this story, prompting Kyle to be further confused in her confessional, chalking it up to Erika being married to a lawyer for all those years being the reason she is coming across this way. Erika clarifies that she didn't want them to operate on Tom's ankle because he would have gone under anesthesia, and him having a traumatic brain injury from that car accident she shared about, coupled with his age, was not something Erika was comfortable with. And so Dorit in her confessional says she believes Erika, but she still thinks, she still thinks they aren't getting all the information, and the totality of the situation is what makes everything hard to believe. Now, Erika then says everyone can F off, basically, and I don't care what you all think. I was there. I've been dealing with this for years, and today there was a hearing of competency, which she said she was not a part of. Kyle then is again reminiscing on last year when they all visited Tom and Erika at their house, where he seemed charismatic and pretty much there mentally, but now they are learning he wasn't in good shape mentally, which is confusing to her because they didn't really notice anything. Dorit is now asking Erika, is it hard for you to hear he is incompetent? And Erika says, yes, of course, but you have to remember, I was the first to raise my hand about there being a problem here, and no one listened. Erika says she doesn't care. Sutton thinks Erika threatened her. She should be threatened because she called her a liar and is not apologizing for it. Now, my thoughts on this, and then we'll get to your live chats, are Erika said, hearing this is hard. Hearing this news is hard. Doesn't make sense to me because at this point, considering she already knew he was mentally declining and had problems, I would think she would be in a little bit of a different mindset of more of a relief that he's getting help or relief that others are finally seeing what she saw all those years and was alone in thinking that for a long time. But we'll come back to that point a little bit later. But I'm starting to also think if no one, not even doctors, family, friends, coworkers of Tom, believed Erika when she was pointing out these things that she thinks are problems, is it possible that she is saying this now as her story to cover for herself, saying, if you would have listened to me, this wouldn't be happening? And even though we know this corrupt behavior was happening decades before this incident, but for Erika, this might be her way of trying to get out of it. But it could be just others didn't interpret things the way she did and all had maybe interests in not raising alarm bells about Tom, the guy who maybe had been propping them all up for years. But then again, I can't imagine doctors or loved ones wouldn't see that. And on the other hand of what I previously said, maybe taking Tom out of the game would have helped all of them because they maybe thought they would be getting a chunk of whatever was there. Of course, we know now there's probably nothing left to get. And maybe in light of what has come out, everyone is kind of keeping their distance regardless of their feelings. And so I think Erika sticking to this narrative that no one believed her regarding the dementia and now they're saying he has it. Is it a strange coincidence that he was displaying these behaviors now? Or was it that he just never had dementia and this is all like a cover for things and or a plea deal? Like this is just how they're playing out with, or how this is going to play out in the media and in the courts. And I don't know. Is this the equivalent of pleading insanity? I don't know, but it's very, very weird. So let me check your chat, see what everyone is saying. Nastia says, but Garcelle is a working single mother. They should be more compassionate. They're all more or less kept women except Sutton. Sutton is also a single mother too. Maybe that understanding is what makes her and Garcelle's friendship work. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And I think that's part I didn't really take into consideration. But I think that also contributes to what I was saying, where unfortunately, Garcelle doesn't have that luxury. And I understand that it might not be fair. She might have come from different circumstances where it didn't allow her to be in the same space as the other girls, but that's the reality. And so if she is doing her best, trying to juggle everything, there might be some things that are kind of sacrificed or not as high priority or whatnot. So it's kind of like you want it all, but you can't sometimes have everything. So that's kind of what I think she's dealing with now. So, all right, let's keep going. And you guys can share your chats as we are continuing on here. All right. Garcelle has now arrived and at the front desk asks, are all the girls in suites or just regular rooms? As she's being escorted to her room, she learns she is one of the few staying in that section where Garcelle in her confessional says, this is how horror movies start, and if she sees twins in the hallways, she's out of here. Referring to kind of the movie The Shining, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And also makes it a point to say that black people are usually the first killed. Add that to the list of Garcelle going out of her way to point out she is black. This has been a pattern throughout the season. I digress. Anyways, Sutton then arrives via wheelchair to Garcelle's hotel room, pushed by a hotel staff member, and shares she has to stay off the foot completely as Sutton and Garcelle catch up on what is happening with Erika, and both are saying they don't want Sutton to knock on Erika's door, proverbially, of course, as they have a drink in the room. And one thing I wanted to say on this is Garcelle, I noticed this, out of all the girls arriving to the hotel, was the one person that arrived without the mask. And if we can all remember earlier in the season, she was very COVID scared and used that as a reason to not stay with the girls at Kyle's house in La Quinta. So I just wonder what happened. And I think they're all wise. They are both wise for not wanting to push Erika's buttons, but we will see if the other girls will do the same and will oblige. So let's keep going. So everyone is getting ready for dinner at Kathy's. dinner party, and Kathy's waking up from a nap and asking Kyle how to open the bottle of wine, adding to the list of things Kyle mothers Kathy over, and the other girls arrive to dinner where Kathy and Kyle are late, getting ready where Rinna is tapped to check in on where they are. Now the girls proceed to sit down without them, and Garcelle is helping Sutton get herself situated in her wheelchair at the table. Everyone orders after Kathy and Kyle arrive, and jokes about eating bread at the table ensue as they wait for their main course to be prepared. Everyone is now saying how they are doing today. Dorit says she's relaxed, Garcelle says she is happy, and Erika says she is fearful, followed by Kathy saying she's anxious because she says she feels there are lingering issues going on in the group. Now, Sutton then admits, after they kind of address Erika saying she's anxious about fearful about what's going on, we'll learn about why later. Sutton then admits to Erika that she did call a meeting without her a few weeks ago because she was in a nervous place and isn't going to apologize because she was only asking questions. Erika then confronts Sutton about her calling her a liar, and Sutton defends herself, saying, "I did not call you a liar. I was seeing things not add up, and that is where the lie came in." Erika says she doesn't care what Sutton feels, and Sutton tries to throw the "okay, small town girl" back in Erika's face, to which Erika decides to try to one-up her by calling Sutton small-minded. Now, Sutton then stands up for herself again by saying that is a put-down and insulting to her, leading to Erika trying to shut it down again, similar to how she has wanted to on many occasions this season. Kathy then steps in, trying to get Erika to forgive Sutton for using the wrong words to address Erika, and Erika says, again, this isn't going to be fixed. Dorit steps in, saying this door is closed for Erika and feels there are a lot of lines being crossed, to which Sutton says, up front, I think Erika crossed a line with me as well. Dorit then confronts Garcelle again as Garcelle is standing up for Sutton again against those trying to pin this on Sutton and pushing Sutton to speak. According to Garcelle, is reminiscent of Lisa Rinna last year, doing the same thing to Denise, trying to get her to say more. And according to Garcelle, neither instance is actually helping as intended. Now, Dorit then brings up how at Kyle's Christmas party, Garcelle called out Dorit for not being honest to Erika's face, and this is where Kathy jumps in saying, let's just let this go. But in her confessional, Kathy says something I think us viewers are saying at this point in the season, which is, and we're experiencing this, which is, we're at the point where we are kind of circling back to the same things that we were supposed to be resolved over and over again. And Dorit again says she thinks a way to get to know people at the table is to be upfront and honest, as Lisa, pictured here, asks Garcelle if she likes the girls at the table in reference to her feeling like an outsider, to which Garcelle says, yes, some more than others. Lisa then says, Garcelle, you need to make an effort back after the group appears to have made an effort towards her and how friendship is a two-way street. Lisa also brings up the comments brought up last week about what Garcelle said on the Ellen show and how that was shady, and gave credence to why some of the girls think Garcelle doesn't like them. Now, when they rehashed the confrontation between Dorit and Garcelle at the bridal line launch last week, Garcelle says she feels she was on an island in that instance by herself, and Dorit made a point in that scene how her feeling like an outsider gives the impression she maybe isn't interested or doesn't want to be a part of the group. Now, in this current scene right here, Garcelle says her feelings don't negate yours, meaning Garcelle's feelings don't negate Dorit's, and Dorit appreciated that, and Garcelle says, already being the only black person in the room, and it's not about race, but have you ever thought maybe it is a little odd for me? And Kyle says, yes, but I don't vocalize it, to which Garcelle then says, how am I supposed to know if you don't vocalize it? And this harkens back to what I said about Garcelle earlier in the season, where she was internalizing a lot of the feelings she felt as an outsider, and it makes people go back to being scared of kind of being accused of something by Garcelle, or how she's going to confront her, because in the beginning of the season, Garcelle confronted Kyle on kind of accusing her of being racist or racially insensitive with the comments from the last reunion about not fulfilling her promise of donating to the charity. And so that could be part of it as well. We talked about that last time. But Garcelle continues saying her whole life she has had to try to fit in, and the girls all say, well, Garcelle, you do fit in. While they are kind of have felt alone in a room, Garcelle asks, have you felt alone in the room at any time? And they're all kind of saying, yeah. And Garcelle then says, try feeling like that your entire life. Now, this scene ends with them hugging a tearful Garcelle and Garcelle in her confessional, hoping this allowed the girls to see a different side of her. And Kyle in her confessional said she's sad to see Garcelle this way, but hopefully it will take their friendships to the next level. Now, my thoughts on this whole scene. First, Erika's comments to Sutton further support what I said at the Rinna beauty launch, where Erika is really trying to belittle and dismiss Sutton, because I think Erika knows Sutton speaking, whether it's questioning anything or just asking questions or not seeing things add up, is a threat to Erika. And in my opinion, if Erika is so innocent, why would she care if people ask questions? Because she doesn't have to answer them. It's your right, Fifth Amendment right, plead the fifth. You know what I mean? I don't know why she feels that way, but I guess the show maybe has a little bit of pressure for her to just not show up and just sit there and be quiet. But Crystal's doing that a lot, so I don't know why can't Erika do it. But as far as Lisa bringing up Garcelle feeling like an outsider and Garcelle's reaction, I agree with Lisa on this and how friendship is supposed to be a two-way street. And that is something we've been saying on here about Garcelle needing to speak her mind. And it appears actually in recent weeks, Garcelle speaking her mind about feeling like an outsider laid the groundwork for them to kind of go a little deeper, and leading to this scene where she opened up more about why and kind of broke down a little bit. Maybe she was holding all these things in, and her crying and letting this out kind of was a kind of that cry for help to kind of get those things out of her. But I don't think using your skin color or race as an excuse is acceptable in my eyes, because Garcelle clearly knows she's using it as a reason, but then she kind of seems to know that it's not an excuse because she said that. But if it's not an excuse and you don't think it's a reason, then why bring it up? And so I think, yes, they can acknowledge the differences between their skin colors, of course. But I think what makes friendship work in general is leaning on those commonalities despite the differences. And if she doesn't want it that way, then maybe this isn't the group for her. Or maybe she does need to step away a little bit if she doesn't want to change the way she approaches it. So that way she can continue living in that kind of mental state that's preventing her from having these friends. But I just don't think you can complain about it, because I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think you can feel like an outsider, distance yourself, but also feel like you're part of the group and close. I think there's got to be something there. So I will say, though, out of this group, in this scene, it showed that Sutton and Garcelle would be the two I would want on my side as a friend, just in general, just those traits of them sticking up for each other in the big group, and also behind their backs, Garcelle is always sticking up for Sutton from what we see. And I think the vice versa is happening. So let's check your chat. I've talked for a while now. All right. Nastia says, Garcelle is the first and only black housewife on this franchise. I feel she's been holding back a lot, and watching everything she says, because she's very cognizant of the cameras, must be exhausting. Hollywood is very image conscious. If she comes across badly, she could see gigs dry up. Again, as a working single mom, she can't afford to lose any jobs. Yeah, and I don't want to suggest, I don't think you are saying I'm saying this, but that she should quit any of her jobs just because of whatever reason. But I think, like I said before, there are trade-offs, and maybe she just needs to acknowledge that, or maybe make a little bit more of an effort with these girls, because they're seeing kind of not a reciprocation of their effort. But I think, we know that she's the first and only black housewife on this franchise, but I don't think pointing out constantly that you look different than everyone else, of course, we need to acknowledge it. Obviously, we have two eyes, but constantly pointing it out, I don't think is helping bridge that gap and helping them become close to each other, if that makes sense. Of course, we want to hear your experience and what you feel and what you think, but at some point, it's going to start creating more problems, if that makes sense. And I do agree with you, Nastia, that she was holding back a lot, and this is kind of her, kind of it all boiling up and kind of exploding, if that makes sense. So I think over the last few weeks, her opening up more in this scene was really eye-opening. I think it finally got the point across to the other girls. But let's see. The other girls cover for each other, but Sutton and Garcelle know they aren't afforded that luxury. Yeah, and they're, I guess, besides Crystal, they're two of their newer housewives. But I think I've actually heard this in past Housewives seasons from other franchises. Is before the season starts, they kind of pick teams or have their teammates or their team or whatever to back each other up if they need it. So I think it looks good there. So anyways, let's keep going. And if you have any more thoughts, I will get to them in a few seconds. So it is now the next morning, and we see the girls getting ready for a sound bath at the resort as Garcelle is pushing Sutton to the event on her wheelchair and makes a point to say, "It is Black History Month. You better be nice to me. I shouldn't be doing this." Like I just said, pointing out the differences. Of course, she's saying it in kind of a joking manner, but it's just one of those things that I keep having to point out because to me, it doesn't make sense. But anyways, the girls are now at the sound bath, which Kathy first did at Kim Kardashian's baby shower, is what she shared. And they are continuing without Erika, which we find out after this is done was due to the news Tom's brother is his conservator and they want to put him in a mental facility for people with dementia. Kyle, Dorit, and Lisa here are shocked by the news as Lisa is sharing with them after all the girls walked away. Lisa and Kyle then go visit Erika in her room after the sound bath, where Erika shares the updates from her perspective, in particular a quote from what was said in the courtroom from Tom's brother about wanting to put him in a home for people with dementia, as we just shared. And Erika says this is the part that is making her ready to have a nervous breakdown, because regardless of what is going on legally, this is what Erika was saying, this is someone she was married to for 22 years. And we also learned Erika knew this news last night at the dinner table, adding to the list of things Erika says after the fact, as Kyle pointed out in last episode when she dropped the bombshell about the recent car accident, which is all playing out now. Now, also, she is sharing her experience, Erika is, with her grandmother who died from dementia, which Tom, we learned, helped pay for that care. And Erika says she wants Tom to get help, but not the help her grandmother had, because she knows what goes on in those homes and how it's not always the best, and it just is kind of the beginning of the end. Now, Erika then ends this episode asking, where is Tom's family in this time? And they all speculate that it could be because of the legal things going on that no one really wants to be involved or around him at this point, which is, I think, objectively, we can say that is sad, while still feeling for the victims of the crimes and kind of wanting that to be first. But my thoughts on this last scene, and then we'll get to your chats, is this last scene explained a lot to me about Erika's story up to this point, because I can see how she is conflicted in her love for a man she was with for 2 decades, not wanting to be associated with the bad things, but also wanting him to get help, but then not the kind of help that she knew growing up or watching her grandmother, which she saw as the beginning of the end for her. So a lot of her appearing to be covering for Tom, I think, could be attributed to that lingering love and protective feeling over him. And as far as overall this episode, I think it made it very clear that they are all kind of ready to end filming and that the finale, it's time for the finale, because they all seem to be welcoming things, giving them space between each other, from the dog, but from Erika to be able to kind of be on her own a little bit, to Sutton's foot, and everyone kind of welcoming a little bit of distance between her and Erika. I think also this is a sharp contrast to the start of the season, where they were all just happy to be out of quarantine and just be out doing something. So I think it's very interesting to see that arc from beginning to end and all the stuff that has come out from then. All right, let's get to your thoughts on the last scene of Erika's new revelations. As you are typing, I will do some housekeeping here. One, if you noticed, I got a haircut, finally, after almost a year of growing it out, and I trimmed it just a little bit this summer and finally just said, it's a little too long. It finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is my limit. So I decided to get a haircut again. So you'll probably see it morph or styled a little differently. I do have a cowlick right here, so I can only do so much, but I think it looks good. I'm happy with it. So anyways, it feels good. It feels light. I feel fresh and ready to film a lot. And I look more like my avatar, like my YouTube channel picture now. So I think that's nice. But as far as housekeeping goes, okay, If you want to be notified when we go live or have a premiered video, make sure to check the description for directions on that or the about section of the channel. Wherever you are tuning in from, whether you're here live in the live chat or on the replay, make sure to comment where you can, and we can continue the conversation after we wrap up in the main comments section. I'll be reading the last few live chats in a few seconds. Also, if you liked what you saw here and you want to make sure you're here for the finale and reunion, recap and reacts live, make sure to hit subscribe, or make sure it says subscribed, because if you already subscribed, you don't want to hit it again, because I've seen that happen where people just blindly hit subscribe, and they're already subscribed and it unsubscribes them. But anyways, also turn on post notifications if you would like to, all or customize whatever you want. And if you liked what you saw, make sure to give it a thumbs up or the equivalent on whatever platform you are watching, listening, tuning in from. All right, let's see what everyone is saying in the live chats. All right, Nastia says, I think Erika is starting to realize that Tom is not going to lawyer his way out of this. I think that is a great comment. I think so too. I think at the beginning with the divorce, maybe she thought she would. Okay, I think Erika knew prior to her filing for divorce that things were going downhill, and she got out. I think she maybe thought she was going to escape, and then when things started coming out, she was slowly panicking. That's when she started opening up more, because maybe she thought she could help the situation, or maybe kind of distance herself more by opening up more, which I think was a mistake on her end. But I think it was just kind of her fight or flight mode. And I think as more stuff came out, she got more and more scared and more kind of flustered. And now she's at the point where it's kind of like she might be at that point where she knows the writing is on the wall, if you will, and is just kind of like letting it all out. I think she was trying to keep inside her any of her love for Tom after the divorce announcement came out. And so I think now we're seeing her finally admit it, because what do you have to lose at this point, right? So I don't know. Let me know what you think of that. But I will take a sip of water as you're still typing, if anyone is, and I'll read those chats in a few seconds. Let me mute for a few seconds. All right, it looks like everyone is good in the live chat. If you have any other comments that you think of after we wrap up here, make sure to head to the main comment section and we'll continue the conversation there. But if that's all we have today, I hope. Thank you all for joining me on this Friday night, and I will talk to you very soon. I'm going to be filming this weekend other videos too, so check the channel to check out more content in the meantime until the next live recap and react. With that said, good night. Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.